This video we're gonna be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually headed over to my buddy's house. He's got a side-by-side he just bought. He said he got it running, but it's super hard to start and there's like a loud noise coming from the motor. So we're gonna head over here and see if we can't fix it for him. So this is my buddy's side-by-side we're gonna be working on. It is a 2018 Polaris Ranger 900 XP. It's a pretty big bike, honestly. It's a massive bed on this thing. He just picked this thing up for $2,500. The seller stated that he used this thing on the farm and just like on the deer lease and stuff like that. And it started getting hard to start. And then it eventually got to the point where it wouldn't start at all. So he just sold it and bought himself a brand new one. And my buddy got a good deal on this thing. So when he brought it back, he checked the fuel pressure, and fuel pressure is within spec. He checked the compression, and the PTO side over here had 125 PSI, but the other side had 90 PSI. So they're both pretty low. Only thing it could really be is the valve clearances or the piston rings. I'm gonna guess it's probably the valve clearances because these things have the little bucket shims and they gotta be adjusted like every so many miles. He put a little bit of oil down the cylinder and actually got it to fire up, but it's making a pretty loud noise. So we'll go ahead and get this thing fired up and see what it sounds like.
I haven't even checked the oil.
For real? Should probably do that. I can hear what you're saying, that little bit of rattle. Like you can barely hear it right there.
I give it gas.
It definitely sounds like it's in the top right here though.
I don't want to do it too much.
So I think the steaming out the exhaust was just condensation because it is a little chilly out here. It definitely sounds like it's misfiring a little bit. As you can see, it was pretty hard to get it started. It kind of stumbles a little bit sometimes. And there's quite a bit of rattling coming from up here. It sounds like the timing chain. So we'll go ahead and just take this valve cover off and check those clearances and check on this chain. I already got these bolts out. So I'm gonna get in here and check these valve clearances and see if one's a little tight. He already checked compression and this cylinder has 125 PSI and this one only has 90. So I'm guessing these valves are just slightly tight. Okay, this chain is definitely a little loose. So this side is definitely tight. I can't even fit the smallest gauge in here. I know the pressure is on it right now, but I just turned it over so I can get it on top dead center to get this chain out. But this is the side that has 90 PSI, so it's a little low. So I'm guessing this because these valves are tight. So I'm gonna have to do the math to figure out what I need here. And then get these shims ordered because these buckets don't actually have shims in them. The shims made into the bucket, so you gotta get a whole new bucket. So I'm gonna have to get all these measurements real quick and write them down. This chain is a little bit loose. You can see the tensioner is like maxed out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this tensioner off real quick. Oh, it's like a spring. Yeah. So you can see this tensioner, it's completely maxed out. It's pushed out all the way. So it should only be about halfway, but it's completely out. So I'm guessing this chain is just stretched, needs to be replaced, because it was all the way out. This thing should be loose without a tensioner, but you can see it's got like a ton of play in it. So we'll get a new chain and guides, and that should fix the rattling problem. And then we'll have to measure out and see which shim we need. And that should fix the low compression on this side, which should help it starting up easier and idling better. So I had to take that little clutch cover off and then use the clutch to turn it around. We got it up on top dead center. See the mark on the flywheel? It's lined up with the mark on the case. So I went ahead and took this cam out so I could check this shim. You can see it's got quite a bit of wear on here. It doesn't seem like it's getting old at the top end. You can see there's plenty of wool up here. I'll definitely have to look into that. Go ahead, pull these shims out. So when you're pulling these out, you want to make sure you know exactly where they go when you put them back. You can kind of see what I was talking about here. See the little shim down in there? It's actually made into this entire bucket. So to replace that shim, you got to replace this whole bucket. But the ones over here on the exhaust side were way smaller, so I actually swapped them with these to get a measurement because they were at 0. So I put the smaller ones in there so I can get a measurement to figure out what I need. Because if it's at 0 and you add the clearance you need, it might not be enough. So you actually want to kind of go over. That's why I used a smaller shim from the other side, just so I can get a measurement first. So I'll get those things ordered. I'm also going to get a new timing chain because this thing is crusty. It literally just like bonds up, you can see. And it's pretty stretched. So we'll get a new timing chain and some new little bucket tappets. That should get this thing fixed up. So the hard start, low compression was from the tight valves. And then that noise, that rattling noise, was from this timing chain. So I'm going over the cam journals here. And, you know, they got a little bit of wear in them, but they're not bad at all. That one's almost perfect. And this one is a little scratched up. That one has a little scoring in it. But you can't actually catch any of these with your fingernails, so they're not that bad. All right, so you actually have to take this entire exhaust off from right there. See it over there? You got to get it out of the way. In order to get it out, you got to get this tire off. Then you can get this stator cover off. Got it over here. And for the flywheel, you just take the bolt out. Use your flywheel puller. That comes right off. That allows you to get to your chain and guides. That's all that's in there. So I'm gonna clean all this out because the oil in there was pretty nasty. Get this little gasket cleaned off. Then we'll get the new chain and guides in. You see these guides really aren't worn down at all. You can see they started chipping in some spots. But they're really not that bad. This one's a little worse. You can see it's starting to come apart. They're really not too bad. So after looking at these cams, you see this one has a pretty big gash in it. Little gash there is not too bad. This side looks fine. There's a massive gash right there. You can't really tell on camera, but it's a really big gash. So I'm gonna go ahead and get 2 new cams, a timing chain, tensioners, and then I'm gonna have to do a little bit of math and figure out what buckets I need for the shims, because like I said, all 4 intake valves were tight. Got everything written out here. I'm still gonna have to take the shims off the exhaust side and put on the intake side, and just so I can get a clearance there to be able to get a measurement, because at 0 you can't really measure it accurately because you don't know how much the spring is actually compressed. So I'm gonna have to put smaller shims in there and get those measurements, but I'll go ahead and do these. People make this look super complicated, and it kind of does look complicated, but the easiest way to look at it is you need a certain clearance. On this one, it's 0.15 millimeters. So you basically need to get the clearance you already have, which for instance is 0.08 millimeters. So that's the clearance you have, but you need 15. So you got to find the difference between those two, which is just 0.15 minus your number, which is 0.08. That difference is how much you got to take off your shim in order to get that much more clearance. So basically you're just trying to find how much it will take to actually match your clearance here, which in this case would be 0.07 millimeters. So to take that off your shim, which will give you more space, these are the shim numbers. And the way you convert these is you just put a decimal right after the 4, like right here. And that's your actual shim measurement. It's 4 millimeters, 0.9, almost 5 millimeters. So all you got to do is take the number that you found, which is the difference between those two, and then just subtract it from your shim. So in this instance, 0.07 from my shim size, which is 4.85 millimeters. And this is going to be the new shim I need to get, a 485 instead of a 492. And then you just do the same process for each one. So this is the clearance I had, subtracted by the clearance I need, subtracted by the shim size. And that'll give you the shim that you need. So for 3 and 4, I'm gonna need these two here. And like I said, I'll have to get those other numbers, and then I'll do that exact same process for the other two. So I put the exhaust shims from the other side in. So it went from a 495 to a 485, a 492 to 475. And with those in there, the clearances are now from 0 to these here. So I just plugged those into what I needed, found the difference between them, and then subtracted that from my new shim size, which is these two. Subtracted those two from that, which gave me these. So now these are all the new shims I need. So they're going from those to these. These are backwards. I guess I probably did this horribly. So this is the first one. So I'm going from a 485 to a 475, and then 475 to a 468, 492 to 485, 492 to 481. So it looks super complicated, but again, it's literally you're just trying to find the difference between these two, and then you want to subtract that difference from your shim size. So I mean, it's really not that much, but it can be a little confusing. These little caps really aren't too bad. You can see there's like a little gash, but you can't even catch it with your fingernail. So I think those are runnable. I don't think that'll cause an issue. See the other one. This one's even in better shape. So the caps are fine. It's just the cams we'll have to replace. I also got this little guide up here as well. You see it's got quite a bit of wear in it. It's not bad, but I figured I'd go ahead and replace it since I'm replacing those. But we'll go ahead and get all these parts ordered, and we'll start going back together with this thing. Get all the parts in. Start by getting these guides back in. See, I already got the first one on. You can see this timing chain is in horrible condition. Like, you can't even close it down. As you can see, it's got a lot more length to it. So it's definitely really stretched, and it's also this is what it's supposed to look like. So I'll go ahead and get this chain on next. Doesn't look like any of the keepers are out. The valves and everything look fine. So we'll go ahead and get these new buckets in and we'll check the valve clearances. So these are the changes I'm making, all on the intake side. 495 to 475, 492, 468, 490 to 482, 492 to 482. And hopefully the clearances are right. So I'll hold these up real good and we'll get them all in there. Hopefully the clearances are right now. All right, so moment of truth. So this is the range it's got to be in. This is 0.20, this is 0.10, this is 0.15. It's supposed to be 0.15 for the intake side. So we'll start with that one. First one here. That one is perfect. This one, that one is perfect. That one is perfect. That one's a little tight, but it still goes in. So it's still well within, or no, it's actually perfect too. Okay, so they're all perfectly at 0.15 now, millimeters. So those are all within spec. We'll throw the exhaust cam in and check those. I didn't actually change any of these. I changed this one from a 190 or a 490 to a 492 because it had a little bit too big of a gap. So we'll see if these are all within spec now. These are supposed to be at 0.25 millimeters, give or take 0.5. So 0.20 millimeters to 0.30 millimeters is the range. I'm actually go ahead and take this cam back off and get this sprocket on here because you can see it won't actually fit around it. So I'm gonna have to take it back off just to get the chain around them. So with these new cams, you actually have to take the sprockets off and swap them over. I just used an impact, zipped them right off. But I am gonna need a torque wrench to actually torque them onto the next ones. But you do gotta make sure these are lined up. So keyholes need to be this way, not upside down. So we'll get these sprockets on, get all this stuff torqued down. So this is how I have to go back together with it on the other cam. See the holes are lined up. Say it was even with the head. These would be down, these would be out. See this one, it's even with the head, the exhaust numbers. That one's pointing up, it's pointing out. So they should both be sitting, that one up, that one down, that one out, that one out. So I'm just gonna transfer it over, exact position, over to this one. A little bit of blue Loctite. Now I can get it back in the bike. You want to put these in there and get the tensioner on before you torque these down. It's the easiest way. So I just got them snug. Get it in here, get everything put on, then we'll torque them down. So I got the PTO side, which is the far side, closer to the belt. That one's on top dead center. You see how the lobes are off the valves. In order for that one to be on top dead center, that's how you torque or how you time it up. Intake, exhaust. This actually has pressure on it. So you gotta time it up. Then roll the crank backwards until the pressure comes off that lobe. And then you can tighten them up. Got the flywheel and starter gear and everything in there. Got it all torqued down. From what I've read, this is torqued to 133 foot-pounds. Don't hold me to that because I think that's so excessive, but that's what I put it to. I'm gonna go ahead and swap out this little guide here too. It goes on top. That's the new one. Like I said, these really didn't have much wear and tear on them, but decided to go ahead and replace them anyway. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these torqued down. Just gonna use a crescent to hold the back of the cam, tighten them up. I will have to tighten them up and then rotate it to get to the other ones. But these go to 14 foot-pounds with Loctite or 168 inch-pounds. You can see, got them perfectly in time little flywheel mark down there. So we're good on that. So we go ahead and get all these little bolts torqued down. They're just 7 foot-pounds, and then we'll turn these around and torque the other side. All right, so I got all this stuff torqued down. All I gotta do is get the stator cover back on. I got everything already torqued, so I just need to put the cover on and get all the bolts in. And this thing will be pretty much done. See, I got the cover and everything on there, all torqued down. Verified my timing. You can see the marks there. Perfectly timed up, tensioners in, bolted down. All this is torqued down. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through all these valve clearances one more time just to make sure everything's good. I'm gonna put some oil in it, get the cover on, and then get this exhaust and this tire back on, and she'll be ready to fire up. All right, got the exhaust and the tire and everything back on. Got this whole thing put together. We'll go ahead and check the compression real quick and we'll just see what they are, and we'll go from there. Originally, this side had 125 PSI, and then this one only had like 85 or 90 or something like that. So we'll see what they jump to. $200. It's like 125. Go for it. I want to start it all. We got this thing all put back together. We're gonna go ahead and take it for a little ride. Just see how it does. It's still not wanting to start on its own without giving it throttle. But the weird thing is, as soon as you give it gas and let off, it'll idle fine. So. Started right up that time. See if it'll go in the gears. Reverse. It sounds way better. Let's see what the temp's at. I guess we'll see if the fan comes on and everything. It should come on at 200 and bring it back down to 180. But yeah, I think this thing's running great. Does it have any leaks or anything? And it actually starts right up now. Okay, maybe not. So I think that heart starting might be something to do with the seals on this intake right here, because I can kind of hear like some air. Like right here somewhere, it sounds like I can hear air. It's kind of like pressuring out somewhere, so it kind of sounds like there's a vacuum leak or something right here. I'll go ahead and check if these are tight, but that could be the problem. It might just be the injectors clicking though, but I'll see if I can figure that out real quick. All right, let's just try it one more time. It's kind of cooled down a bit. Yeah, 160. Started up fine that time. Let's try it again. That is weird. Let's see what the voltage is at. I guess it doesn't have a voltage gauge. That's so weird. So I'm not entirely sure why it's not wanting to start like that. It's weird because you give it throttle and it'll start up fine, and then you let go of the throttle and it'll idle. So why won't it idle when you turn the key? If anybody got any answers to that in the comments, please let me know. I'm gonna go ahead and get new plugs for it and see if that helps. I know that one side was still a little low because I'm pretty sure both cylinders are supposed to be minimum 150. You've seen the PTO side had 200 and this one only had 125. So that could be something to do with it. Hopefully we don't have to end up tearing this thing down and redoing the rings and pistons. So after a ton of research, I came to the conclusion that the low compression was the issue. You know, they're supposed to be minimum 150 PSI on both sides, and they're supposed to be within 20 PSI of each other. So I knew that was wrong, but I figured, you know, having 125 and the other one has 200, it would be enough to start up and run at least. But apparently on these specific motors, the 900s, it actually only starts on one cylinder, and then once the engine's actually running, the other cylinder actually starts engaging. So the cylinder that has low compression actually starts the motor before the other one even starts up. And that cylinder only has 125 PSI, but that's only with the throttle open. So when you do a compression test, you do it with the throttle open. So when the throttle's closed, it only has like 100, which is not enough for it to start. That's why whenever we were trying to start it, it would start up when I had the throttle open, but as soon as you take the throttle off, it wouldn't start up. So we did a leak down test on it and confirmed that it is the piston rings. There's no air coming from anywhere else. So I'm actually not gonna do the top end on this bike because he doesn't want to pull the motor and do a full rebuild, because with these you're supposed to pull the rods off the crank. And to do that you got to split the cases. So he found a guy that can do it in frame, like still in the bike. So he's gonna take it to him and hopefully that works out. I can keep you guys updated, let you know if that fixes it, but I'm pretty sure it will. But we'll go ahead and send it back to the old me. But that's where we're gonna stop with this thing for today. I appreciate everybody watching these videos. My only goal is to teach people out there some stuff they didn't know. I'm learning everything along the way as well, so I just want to share that experience. That's going to be it for this video though. I'm going to be working on a Ranger 570 probably in the next video, so look forward to that, and I'll see you all in the next video.